There's stories and then there's stuff to do. So let's just talk about stories for a minute. All of us are going to learn history better through a story format.
Hey everyone, this is Yvette Hampton. Welcome back to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. I am back with my sweet friend, Linda Lacour Hobar. Hobar. That's always a tongue twister. Every time I try to say your name, it's always such a tongue twister.
Usually the maiden name that's the problem, Lacour.
Right. But, Linda Lacour Hobar. I don't know what it is about that. I'm just going to call you Linda. It's just
you do that.
That's your friend name for me anyway. So that's what I call you. Anyway, we are back with Linda. She is the author of The Mystery of History. And this is part of our history episode in our Homeschooling Every Subject series that we are doing. And so I hope this is helpful for you and just helping you to understand why history? How do we study history? What do we need to study in history? And so Linda's here to answer all those questions because if you've heard the last two episodes with her, you know she knows her stuff, you guys. It fascinates me how you can just pull all these names and events, out of your head. It's incredible to me. I wish I knew history that well, but I'm learning it. It is one of the greatest joys and privileges of homeschooling is regaining that education that
so true.
I never got. I've told you this before, Linda, that I didn't even know what the Holocaust was until after I was married.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I haven't figured it out because I have no idea what kind of curriculum we used in school. And I don't know if they didn't teach it to us or if we just blew past it so fast that I didn't catch it. But you can't not remember the Holocaust. How do you, if you study it?
Part of an agenda that I'm afraid you were subjected to because about in the 1940s, John Dewey and others really wanted to kind of squeeze out history and replace it with social studies.
Right.
Because if we actually study history, we're going to wise up to tyranny, and those who would like tyranny don't want that. So you were in the dumbed down era. I was also in that. I was in school in the 60s and 70s, and that's when it started. I know.
Yeah, I think so. And still, it's continuing on today. But that's a whole different topic, so we won't get deep into that. But we will get back into talking about history and just the joys of teaching history to our kids. We're going to talk today about how to teach history to your kids. But before we do, I want to say thank you again to our sponsor, BJU Press Homeschool. If you're looking for good, solid, biblical worldview curriculum, check them out at bjupresshomeschool.com. And if you're not sure what's best for your family, what subject you need, what, learning style or teaching style you want, whatever's best for your family, they've got something for everyone. So go to their website or call them up and talk with them, bjupresshomeschool.com. So Linda, let's talk about the how of teaching history, because this is, of course, one of those questions that every homeschool mom asks. Maybe they know what to teach, but they're like, how do I do this? How do I teach history to my kids? And obviously picking up books and reading them. But how can we teach it? How can we make it enjoyable for ourselves and for our kids?
Number one, I think we have to separate out that there's stories and then there's stuff to do. So let's just talk about stories for a minute. All of us are going to learn history better through a story format. And any age can enjoy the same story. You could have the story of the Trojan horse, and a little 4-year-old might actually enjoy it because there's little soldiers stuffed in a horse that get rolled into a city gate, right? But a 99-year-old can still enjoy the story because it's just fascinating, right? So stories really are the key. I like to look at them as the meat, and then everything else is a side dish that you can add or take away. But the side dishes, they serve a purpose. So I was thinking about this, Yvette, when you asked me to come on today, and I've never done this before, so I hope this works well. But I looked at how I would divide the side dishes, and some letters came to me. I realized that if you took the letter E, you could say, well, some of our side dishes help us expand and enhance what we're reading in history. So that's your E column. But then a host of other little tools and things help us with an R, which is to review and retain. So if I could just take the rest of our time and divide between E and R, those columns, I think it'll help give a visual to your listener so that they can think, ooh, what do we really need here? So the kind of things that help you expand history. Well, first of all, literature, as in biographies, particularly your nonfiction. So maybe you have a basic story you got from a book, but now you're going to grow it because you're going to pick up another book. So yes, you are just expanding literally what you read, taking it maybe to a higher level. Well, here's another way to expand what they're learning in history is to tie in geography. Open the atlas, pull out a globe, find with your finger where this took place so that you actually can then understand the dynamics, especially over border wars. You've got to see it visually. Then there's a host of things students can do activity-wise that are, say, research-oriented, like more of the story. Perhaps you want to do something like maybe you know the story of Alexander Hamilton, who died in a duel shot by Aaron Burr. Well, how about the rest of the story, like what became of Aaron Burr? So I love the rest of the stories. Those are ways to expand and enhance. And then let's not just forget that all stories, like you can't learn it all in any single setting because it's an endless topic. So there's always more to learn. So if they want to go to the library and get all the ninja books or all the submarine books, just keep going. You know, which by the way, don't squelch a curious 11-year-old. They're notorious for that. They want to keep going and keep going. But now let's turn to the R column and let's talk about reviewing and retaining. What do we do to help us do that? And why do we even want to do that? Well, for one, we don't want to waste our time. We want to retain some of the stories for all the reasons we talked about with the why. We want to retain, not that we're going to get all the little facts straight because we'll never remember them all, but we want to retain the most important people in the main parts of their lives. So one way to do that is maybe have your kids make little note cards as you go. You know, what are the takeaways for you? This is a place where quizzes are helpful, not because you're nickel and diming the little facts, but the quizzes will help you keep straight some of the main people. I think, by the way, there's about 100 people to know from each of those 4 time periods we talked about in the last episode. You know, the eras, ancient, medieval, Renaissance, modern. If students know about 100 from each era, that's manageable. When you start adding hundreds more, it gets cloudy and foggy. So use some note cards, use some quizzes to just help keep your hundreds straight. Let that be manageable so that you're intelligent, you know, and can use stories of the people. Another thing, there's exercises, there's games, there's a lot of ways to just, you know, be fun, you know, pin the tail on the donkey that's, you know, putting people up and all kinds of things you can do. Then let's go back to literature. Once again, literature can help you with the retention and the remembering. But in this case, maybe it's the historical fiction. It's the kind like, take Johnny Tremaine. He's a favorite of the story of the American Revolution. He's not a real person, but he represents a real boy. You know, he's works for a silversmith, and it makes the time period become more alive, not because it's a play-by-play of the American Revolution, but because he's dropped in it. So obviously the read alouds, which by the way, I have a host of read aloud favorites on our website because since there are hundreds of titles that could fit any time period, I personally went through and picked 12 to 15 read aloud favorites that I just think are the juiciest. So we recently added that to our website. I just want people to know because it's a new tool. It's like a list and links. So you can find some of those things that we recommend.
Oh, that's
Let's see other things. Let's go back to the activities. So for the little guys, I think the most important thing is we're not expecting little guys, I mean younger than middle school, we're not expecting them to master world history. No one can master world history. The older we get, the more we can connect the dots and see cause and effect in that. But when they're younger, we're just exposing them to it. It's the first time that they got the story of Mary, Queen of Scots or whatever. And so in that case, we just want to use their senses. So let them burn things, dye things, eat things, cook things, do things using their senses to help them remember a story or an odd fact about someone and go from there. Then when they're older, they can recall through the use of their senses like, oh yeah, remember when we were little and we wrapped up like mummies? They were just having fun.
With toilet paper, of course.
With toilet paper. Except during the pandemic, we had to use what do you call that other thing? Use something else. Anyway, but just, when they get older, it's to realize that the Egyptians actually thought they had to preserve bodies because they had no hope for an afterlife. Mm-hmm. They didn't know the biblical teaching that we would get new bodies in heaven. So they're like literally taking old flesh and trying to preserve it, through the mummification process. I don't think a second grader needs to know that part, but they'll remember when they're in 10th grade studying the Egyptians again, that they did that when they were little. So yes, using their senses is just key, and it makes it more fun. We certainly want our kids on a good homeschool day to want more,
Yeah.
to think that there's some fun to be had. It's certainly not just worksheets, though some will thrive on worksheets.
Sure.
You got to know your kids.
Yeah.
But most children are going to engage if they can move.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I know there's been times where my girls will do like a little skit or a play or something like that. One time we even filmed it. And you know, it's the beauty of having smartphones now. Like you can just get out your phone, say, put it on video and tell them, okay, I want you to act this out. You know, they can make fun costumes out of, you know, who knows, whatever materials they have at home. And that's a really fun way for them to make history come alive and fun for them. And they'll remember those things better than they will just reading it out of a book.
One more great tool that really fits in both the E column or the R column would be timelines. Because timelines, when you do see it all spread out, well, for one, that expands your understanding because you see contemporaries, but it also helps you review. Like, oh, yeah, David and Aesop live near each other. I'm sorry, Daniel and Aesop live near each other. So how cool is that? And on it goes. So yeah, we can't leave out timelines. They're a great tool for the how.
Yeah, timelines are fun. I never had used a timeline really until we started homeschooling. The first one was we did classical conversations and we had the timeline song, of course. And then now we have this beautiful timeline from Master Books that I absolutely love. And it's so cool to just fold it out and look at what happened throughout history and how all of these things overlap and relate to each other. So timelines are really cool. They're really a lot of fun. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. Have you tried CTC Math yet with your child? Here's a testimonial from another happy homeschool mom. Amber said, I'm absolutely thrilled with CTC Math. It's a rare find that I've used with my children for more than 5 years now. I have 6 children using CTC Math, and each child has found it easy to navigate and very applicable. Thank you so much for all that you are doing in providing quality math lessons for my children. If you're looking for a great online math program, visit ctcmath.com. That's ctcmath.com. Are you looking for a homeschool curriculum that goes beyond textbooks and truly engages your children in the joy of learning? Apologia's award-winning curriculum is written by homeschool parents to specifically meet your needs and captivate your students with hands-on activities and experiments that make learning unforgettable. With an easy-to-follow, open-and-go format, Apologia takes the stress out of planning and provides a simple roadmap that can easily be tailored to your family's needs. Explore live classes or self-paced courses designed to accommodate every student's unique learning style. Elevate your child's education, spark their curiosity, and nurture a lifelong love for learning with Apologia. Discover Apologia today at apologia.com. We are back with Linda. This has been so much fun. I love talking about fun ways to make history fun. And it's so funny you talked about worksheets, and some people like worksheets. Abby and I did a back to school episode several weeks ago. And I talked about how I had this great plan for our school year. And Lacey was like, you know, she's 14 now. And so I kind of sat down with her, kind of laid out my plan. And she's like, can we just do like textbooks and worksheets? Cause that's what I like. And she loves it. It's so funny. She loves to check off that scope and sequence. It's like her favorite thing to do. Cause she just feels accomplished, and she's always been that way. I don't know why I thought I could get away with doing something different,
Right.
but yeah, she's my worksheet girl and she learns that way. She likes to fill in the blanks. And so it's great. What else? What other encouragement do you have? We have just a few minutes left. So as we're wrapping it all up and talking about how to teach history, how to make it fun, and you've had some really fun ideas, what is one last bit of encouragement that you would give to our audience?
I guess I would want your listeners to hear this. Like, clearly I'm passionate about world history now, but I wasn't as a child. So a word of encouragement, say you're a teaching parent and you have a child that does not appear that academic, you worry a little bit about them. Well, don't assume that they'll stay that way forever. Don't assume, for example, that they might not connect to history. I am a Mary, not a Martha. I am a feeler, dreamer, free-spirited type. And I got hooked on history because it is about people. And it didn't mean that I was necessarily the academic with all the philosophers. It didn't mean that I had my, perfect reports done and perfect bibliographies and the things that maybe a Martha could do. I didn't have those things naturally, but I loved the subject matter. I was compelled by it. I still am. So there's hope for kids who appear studious and those who just appear not to be studious, because if you can get their heart, then it doesn't matter. Like I said, history, the meat of history are the stories. Everything else is a side dish. So just pick and choose wisely the tools we just described. When my daughter was in high school, she was like, Mom, could we be done with timelines? Like, she had done timelines since she was in first grade. So she did no timeline in high school, but she made memory cards. She made note cards coming out the wazoo because that fit her personality, like you were just describing of your daughter. So pick and choose wisely, because you can't do it all. You're not supposed to do it all. But keep a love of history through the stories ultimately. I think it can be done.
Yes, I love that. And I'm so grateful that you have a book list on your website now. That is so helpful. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes, of course, so that people can find that and easily find books. I love reading with my girls. I sadly, I don't get to read with Brooklyn too often anymore. But Lacey and I still sit and snuggle up on the couch together and we read, and I love it. And so it's just a fun way to build relationships, but also learn history. At the same time. So,
And when you can't read, we have audiobooks, because sometimes you got to just pour it into a busy schedule. So there's always the car.
Yep, that's right. Which we love the Mystery of History on audio. I love that it's Linda's voice. She reads the whole thing and it's very well done. It's so, I can just hear the passion in your voice as you read and as you're talking. So we'll put links to the Mystery of History, all things Linda Hobar, in the show notes so you guys can easily find them. Linda, thank you so much for being with us this week. It has been so much fun chatting with you. Thank you for talking us through history. It seems like a really big thing to tackle as a homeschool mom, especially if you're not a history teacher. It's one of those, I feel like history and science are the two, maybe language arts, writing, those are and math. Well, it's all the subjects. I don't know what I'm talking about.
They're all daunting at times.
It just depends on the mom. It depends on what you're comfortable teaching. And so, for those who maybe do not enjoy history, they go into it, just like, oh, okay, I've got to teach history now. And so maybe listen to this podcast again, get some encouragement, and hopefully it can be a wonderful year of teaching history to your kids. Now you've got the why, you've got the how, you've got the what, all the things. So thank you, Linda, for being with us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We love you guys. Have a great rest of your week. Stay tuned to the very end to hear what's coming up next on the podcast. And would you do us a favor and share this podcast with your friends? If you're watching on video, be sure to like it, subscribe to our channel, and then share that with your friends as well. If you're listening to it as a podcast, share that with your friends. That really is helpful to us. We've told you guys before, you are our marketing team. So we need your help to get the word out about the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. And if you haven't watched the movie yet, watch it. Schoolhouserocked.com. Everything is there. You can stream the movie for free. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you guys back here on Monday. Bye.
You're listening to the Biblical Family Network.
Hey, I'm Miki.
And I'm Will.
And we're the co-hosts of the Culture Proof podcast. We want to invite you to join us every week as we discuss what's happening in the world and then filter those happenings through a decidedly biblical lens.
There are many questions, especially when we see what's happening in our culture today, but the answers are found within the Word of God. So that's where we want to look.
Amen. When we resist those cultural trends that rival the truth,
we remain culture proof.
A lot of people say science is so complicated. There's no way I could possibly grasp this as a parent, right? But really, science, it comes from the word knowledge. It means to have knowledge of the natural world. So all we're doing is we're studying the things we see around us. Well, the Bible is full of scientific knowledge of the natural world. If we believe the Bible is true, then it says that we're created in God's own image. And that means that we have the tiniest fraction of the mind that He has, meaning that we can understand some of the ways in which He created this universe. And that includes physics, it includes science, it includes the earth sciences. It includes pretty much all of these natural fields, whether it's astronomy or archaeology or biology or paleontology, genetics, chemistry, the whole gamut. We have the mind of our Creator, a tiny portion of it, which means that we can figure this out. We shouldn't be afraid of it.